Alright, we got a new razor build coming, and I've purchased a winch. And today I'm going to talk about this winch, unbox it, and kind of give you an idea of why I chose it. It's going to be the Warren Axon 45S, which is synthetic rope winch. And there's some specific features that really nothing else on the market has. This video is not sponsored. I bought this. It's what I've chosen to go with for the new razor build. So we'll get to it here, and I'll go over the features of it. Okay, so this is how it came to me. Come well packaged. Didn't get beat up too bad. You can see it's basically comes in a cardboard wrapped retail package. You can see they do a cutout here. This particular unit, the part number is 101140, and that is for the Axon 45S synthetic. That's what it actually says on the outside. The dash S on the Warren winches usually means synthetic. And these are not light. So this is the winch. And there wasn't a whole lot of info on YouTube about these. Warren has a video or two, and they kind of just do a splashy thing. They really don't mention important items on this particular winch. So packaging wise, looks like there's 3 little cardboard compartments. So this is the winch cabling for power. So I will mention these are all pre-crimped. I'm probably going to end up cutting these and making them to length. But they do come pre-cut or pre-crimped, if you were wondering. And quality wise on the handle, these are their new digital control. It has the LED here. It basically shows your load and your error status. Got a really nice push button. It appears to be probably, I don't know that it is, but it's probably IP67 rated. I would say these are completely sealed. This is what the connector looks like. And pretty significant manual. This will come in useful here in a second, because this actually looks like this comes with the VRX and the Axon manual. And I'll go over that here in a second, what the differences are, because that's one of the main differences and one of the reasons I chose this winch. So bolt pack, wire covers. Looks like it comes with some mounting hardware, and then the fairlead nuts are there. That appears to be maybe an inch. That may be important to you if you have a different fairlead that you're going to put on. Okay, so this is the winch rope cover. Kind of short compared to what I'm used to. A lot of them that I've gotten have been a lot longer than that. Don't know what that matters. So this does come with a hook. It's not the fancy Warren hook. It is black, but it looks like a fairly standard hook. Yeah, it's got the regular lead. So this is a generic hook. It's not their fancy one. This is the fancy fairlead. It does come with that. And this is the wiring. So all of it's already pre-connectorized. This is a flush mount. And one of the things I wanted to mention, I've seen a lot of people have mounted this incorrectly. This appears So you would want to drill a hole the size of this and either slide it through the bottom. There is another option that you could do. You could manufacture something and cut out. If you notice these stubs that stick out on the back, if you wanted to flush mount this in the reverse direction, you could. So it comes with like a cover and a fused wire. So now that I've got this out, you can notice one thing it's missing from every other traditional winch. There's no contactor. Literally, you basically hook up positive and negative wires to the battery. And then you hook up this wiring harness. So why is that important? So basically, you only end up with 3 connections to your ATV. This is your activate or power on wire, so you would normally connect this up to ignition. As you can see, this is a low amp draw, so this, if you have like a Polaris with the pulse bar, you would connect this to your accessory on area on your bus bar, and your winch would only run if the ignition switch was on. This all plugs directly into the winch, so there's no real wiring, no contactors, and that's the main reason I got this winch, is no contactor. The particular razor that I just ordered, they do have a place for a contactor, but it's not in the traditional location, and I really wasn't happy with that location. So that's one of the reasons that I bought this winch. One of the reasons you may consider this winch is installation is going to be much faster, and you don't have to worry about the contactor. It's all built in the winch, it's all sealed. Okay, so this is the winch. We'll give you some close-ups to the ends here. So if you're doing like a traditional bumper mount, be mounted in this direction. And this is the free spool. If you notice here on the back, really simple. Your positive and negative are here, and your already terminated sealed connector is here. So really simple hookup. The contactor is actually built, I believe it's actually built on this side. There's a couple of photos of this side removed. It's very symmetrical. So if you've ever had another winch, typically you have a big motor on this side, and then it gets non-symmetrical over the side. So looks wise, compactness wise, this is pretty much the same width, diameter, height all the way across. It's basically a square with the exception of your mounting tabs that come down. Now on those, these are a wide spool mounting. Be sure to check and see if you actually can mount the winch to what you plan on putting it on. The particular razor that I am getting, the inner mount that you would normally do inside, this winch will not fit because it's so bulky on the ends that it will not fit that particular mount. So I actually got an aftermarket bumper mount. So this is going to mount on top of the bumper. And I'll do a video of when I actually install this when the razor comes. One of the nice features I can already notice is it looks like they have really deep holes. The Moto Alliance winch that I had on my last razor, I ended up having to trim the bolts that he sent with it because it actually would bottom out in the winch. And if you weren't careful or didn't notice it when you installed it, you would actually have a little bit of play. So when you use your winch, the winch would kind of give some. And I actually ended up having to trim down those bolts. So these are really deep. You could probably use a relatively long bolt in there. So fit and finish wise, this thing looks really cool. It's really compact, really easy to get to. The whole bottom of the spool is exposed. Traditionally on most of the other winches I've had, you end up with like 4 containment rods or what have you that actually hold the winch together. This one relies on the bottom tabs being bolted down, so the bottom is completely exposed, the spool is exposed, and then on the top you've got a little bit of exposure up here on top. Now this is the first time that I've seen this winch in person, so this is something I had to do a little bit of research on. Realized pretty early on there wasn't really any content detailing everything about this winch that I wanted to know. One, which is what this actually looked like for the connections. It's very simple. It's guarded connections back here. This will be really easy to wire up. One of the things that's kind of highly recommended on this winch, or one of the features of it, is supposed to be this. It is positive filling. I don't know that I really had an issue. I had a Moto Alliance winch on the 1000S, and there was really never any question on whether you've been free spool or not. Other winches I've had that trouble, especially if they have the big hand dial. You really can't tell whether, is it just kind of hung or is it actually engaged. This, you can hear it. You hear the little thump, 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 thump. So you know whether it's actually engaged or not. And this turns relatively easy. I wouldn't say that it's any easier or harder than any of the other winches that I've had, but it definitely is pretty easy to reach in there and grab that. So I'm pretty sure this is the same style as the hub. So counterclockwise appears, or clockwise appears to be lock, or unlock, sorry, and then this is lock. So that should be pretty easy to remember. Forward facing means that it's locked and engaged. Pointing up means it's unlocked. My understanding is the whole winch, everything on the winch is sealed. Really not a big factor with a bumper mount, because ideally if you have a bumper mount you're not going to be submersing it. And the winch that's mounted underneath low down on the razor, a lot of times this is going to get water, so that's something to consider. They do have a smaller winch, a smaller version of this, the RC, which does fit some of the internal ones, but you end up with not as much winch cable, and that was not something I was really interested in, as a short winch cable. All in all, a really small unit. As far as compactness and nothing really sticking out. The big reason I chose this winch is it doesn't have a contactor, an external contactor, so everything's built here. So all that I need to do is actually wire this. One thing I will mention, really, especially if you're going to be using a factory bus bar, pay attention to how much current your winch will draw and see if it's over what the bus bar will support. This winch, for most razors, for most higher end razors, a 45 is going to draw right at the maximum current that the bus bar can draw at maximum load. So there is a 55 S, which basically is identical size. It just has a stronger motor in it. It far exceeds what a normal bus bar can supply. So you would actually need to not use the bus bar. You would need to run this wiring all the way back to the battery if you chose to go that bigger winch. Typically, very rarely, unless I'm just needing a slight tug, typically I'm using a pulley in line with this to double down, so I really don't have huge current draws. But that's why I went with the 45 versus the 55. There's not a huge price difference. I think it's around $100. But the current draw on it would far exceed what I could get off the bus bar. And I didn't really want to have to run these wires all the way back to the battery. If you've ever done a razor, one of the most critical areas of wiring is that tunnel. There's lots of spinning things in your drive shaft, etc. I try not to run, if I can help it, through that area, just because there's so much stuff there that's moving, and Ideally, when you're building a machine, you want to build it to be reliable and not have any issues with it. And not having to worry about wiring up a contactor, that's probably the number one thing that's going to fail on a winch system. It's all integrated in here. My understanding is this is probably going to last forever, simply because it's a really well sealed unit. It's accessible, and if I do have a problem because I have a bumper mount winch, this is going to all be exposed on the surface of the bumper, so I can get to it all. I can replace the motor. I've already looked online. You can actually purchase the contactor set. You can purchase just the motor, parts, spool, gearing. Everything will be there, and it'll be a lot easier to get to. If you've watched my 1000S videos, I had an internally mounted winch. It was I think it was a 4,500 pound as well. Anytime that I needed to do anything, I took out the diff, anything like that, I had to actually remove the winch. And that added about 2 hours to the effort just to get that winch out of the way so I could move things. So I've chosen not to go back with that path and keep the winch up and out of the way of all the other accessories and the external on the razor. Anyway, I hope this helps some folks out if you're considering one of these winches. Hopefully this is kind of the why you would want to consider it. The big number one reason is no contactor. This is also really nice. The touch controls here. I don't know if that's going to come through on camera. I'm going to give you a close-up shot, but you can definitely feel the actuation in that. It's all sealed. Nice, and it's grippy. So it's a hard rubber, but it grips on your hand, which is really nice. Because generally, if you're winching, your hands are probably going to be wet, or you're going to have gloves on. This makes it a little bit easier to grab onto. This does provide both an externally mounted winch control and the dash switch. It comes with a dash switch that's identical to this. And that would be right here in this little pack. And that extra, in the wiring harness, it has 2 connectors there that allow you to connect that up. So one of these will actually go to the winch and the other one will go to the switch, and then you have this, and it's all pre-wired and ready to go. Anyway, just a real quick video. Kind of, I had issues finding information about this winch and wanted to kind of answer the questions I was asking before I ordered it. And right now, I don't have it on the machine yet, but from what I can tell, this is going to turn out really nice. Okay, well, thanks, and we'll see you on the next one. Be sure to like and subscribe.